everything has culminated in today. Total War Warhammer 3 has been announced, and it is amazing. This was probably one of the coolest cinematic trailers I've ever seen of Warhammer Fantasy, period. To see a lot of these things brought to life, I mean, this is like a 20-some-odd-year wet dream of mine come true. And it is a lot of fun. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to just quickly go through the actual trailer itself. I'm going to bring the volume on it very low. So I'm just going to be talking over it. And then we're going to go through certain stills of the trailer where I just talk about, hey, this is exactly what I see. Then we're going to go over the FAQ and the Steam page to give us some context clues about some stuff that we can maybe glean about when the game takes place, or some of the protagonists and antagonists and what's going on, so on and so forth. So take a lot of the stuff at the end of the video with a relative grain of salt. It's me taking a look at stuff and maybe trying to see a pattern, blah, 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 blah. So let's dive into the actual trailer. I'm going to put a link in the description. So if you want to watch the trailer itself live alongside my commentary, you're more than welcome to. But let's go ahead and jump into that. Real quick though, before we jump in, I do want to say that I will have a Nexus store link active for the pre-purchase of Total War Warhammer 3. I don't have an actual ETA on that, but if you don't mind waiting and you want to purchase through that link, it would help me out a ton. We actually get a very sizable commission from Nexus. They just work hand in hand with Creative Assembly, so they get the keys directly from them, and it's a really awesome relationship. So if you can wait and you haven't done it already, please do wait and use that link. If not, and you just want to go through Steam or Epic, not a big deal, go for it. But definitely want to plug that real quick before jumping into this trailer. Okay. We're starting off here, Peggy 16. Don't tell my mom and dad I didn't turn 16 yet, so I shouldn't even be watching this. And just crushing it immediately with some just amazing music. I really want to find like what the lyrics are to this to see if there's any cool other like hints to it. But we kind of open up on a nice snowy or blood-soaked snowy plain, and we immediately get that first kind of taste of Kislev, right? We get this aesthetic, we get this amazing, awesome, oh, look at these Ice Guard, look at these Ice Guard, oh. We get the narrator walking into the tent, we see Katerin, not Tsarina Katerin. Oh. Now, I can't decide if this is Nurgle, Kugoth, or just a random greater demon coming into Slaanesh here, or a greater demon of Slaanesh. We jump into Tzeentch, or a greater demon thus of, and closing us out with the best hair metal band member of all time, Khorne. Oh. And I love like all this like super like hyper realistic blue, or hyper glowy blue stuff. We see some units on the left and right sides. We see this guy, I don't even know who he is. He looks important, kind of looks like a dwarf. Some units in the backdrop, and then boom, bear cav swinging it in as we swing on over to some winged hussars, the winged lancers, and then some skull crushers. It just never ends. It just keeps topping itself every second of this trailer. Oh man. I just like those helmets are so sick as we jump into the bloodthirsters hacking and slashing their way. And just like the music in the background is kicking. I'm just waiting for a ripping guitar solo as this bloodthirster kicks this guy across the damn map. Oh. Oh man. Oh. That's got to be the coolest bloodthirster I've seen since the Mark of Chaos trailer. We get Conquer Your Demons, and then there's a little bit more, just a little taste of things to come in the Warhammer 2 kind of way of doing this. A new awesome logo too, entirely redone. I love it. Oh man, it's so sick. A frosty steel looking logo as we then jump into the narrator once more. In this cat map, looking at a map of Grand Cathay, you see the Jade Dragon idol, and you see his little smirk. Coming 2021. So, now that we've kind of gone through this together, you've seen my excitement, and it is intense. Let's just kind of look at some certain screen caps to discuss what this could possibly be. And we'll basically be starting at the beginning of the video. I'll go forward, grab the screen caps that I need, and we'll discuss those things. And in this portion, we're going to talk about some of my assumptions for how the game is going to be set, what kind of units we might be seeing, I guess, or what units that I'm gleaning from this trailer and roughly their description in the lore. Now, I'll be kind of really hinging off of stuff from the Warhammer Allied contingent that features a lot of Kislev stuff. We made an army roster video on that. You can find it in the upper right corner. Go ahead and check that out if you want to discover more about this. But there is so much fun that we can have with Kislev. So let's jump into this. Our first clip we're going to look at here is of the Ice Guard. Now, these were actually teased out in the Old World launch on the Warhammer community website back in March 23rd of 2020. And in it, it says, known as the Ice Guard, they're an elite formation of warrior women equally skilled with bow and blade. But where they differ significantly from the other Kislevite units we've seen in the past is that they're able to channel the elemental magic of their realm in a similar manner to their Ice Queen, the most powerful practitioner of this unique form of sorcery. Here are some awesome pieces of concept art for the Ice Guard, courtesy of Forge World's Mark Bedford. And these are just straight up exactly what it looks like on that concept art. As you can see, they're exactly the same looking models. They have the exact same type of armor, headgear, everything, even the glowing weapons that are showcased in the concept art as well. So we can see that the Old World, that the new Warhammer project that's basically bringing back Warhammer Fantasy into the kind of current Games Workshop repertoire, is heavily influencing Total War Warhammer 3. And there's actually some other things we're going to get into that the current range of Games Workshop seems to be influencing Total War Warhammer 3 in a lot of crazy cool ways. So this is exciting here. These kind of almost look like we're going to be getting, from at least the description, sounds like something we'd be getting with the High Elves, right? And the Sisters of Avalorn, and getting those units that have magic bows, but also they have weapons to attack in melee. So maybe we get something like that with this here, right? Like Frostbite. I'm sure we're going to get a whole slew of new types of attacks and stuff like that. But we get something very similar to that with these units. They look really cool and very exciting. The next individual to talk about is Catherine herself. Now, this is the daughter of Boris Ursus, the current Tsar of Kislev. Well, we believe the current Tsar. By the looks of it, she's reading a letter from Boris. Boris goes to the northern Chaos Wastes, where he eventually is kind of lost for a bit, assumed dead, found unconscious, all these kind of series of events. But this definitely seems like the point prior to her actually becoming the Tsarina of Kislev, but very close to that time stamp, I guess you could say. And we know that to be about 12 or 15 years after the coronation of Karl Franz. So this brings up some very interesting questions about the, I guess, timeline of the game. And we'll get into more of that towards the end of the actual trailer itself when we discuss another portion of it. But we have Catherine here, the Ice Queen of Kislev, and her mastery of ice magic, probably, hopefully, a new lore of magic that Kislev would be able to take advantage of. Of course, we've done videos on both of these things. Check them in the upper right corner, all that kind of stuff. Let's jump over now to the gods or the greater demons or whatever it is supposed to be that we see next. And the first demon we see is a great unclean one. Now, it's hard for me to decide. Is this Kugoth Plaguefather? Is this just a generic greater demon of Nurgle? Or is this supposed to be a representation of Nurgle himself? The greater demons are supposed to be created in the image of their actual patron god, but we also know that many of the greater demons have different characteristics, different looks, different styles. Kairos Fate Weaver, for example, has got 2 heads, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. So it's hard for me to decide for all of the demons we're about to take a look at. Are these the Chaos Gods, or are they just a greater Chaos Demon? Either way, it's exciting to see Big Papa Nurgle or a greater demon thus of, because this is probably one of the coolest representations of a great unclean one. Like, it's disgusting and it's putrid, but it's awesome and it's beautiful, just like Nurgle wants it to be. Now, the next demon I want to talk about is Slaanesh. And from this angle, it kind of looks like Snoke from the new Star Wars, and I got a pang of fear because we all know how well that went. But this is interesting because this is the greater demon of Slaanesh, or Slaanesh himself, whatever it's supposed to be. And what is interesting about this is not the Keeper of Secrets from 8th edition or from 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy. This is the Keeper of Secrets from the new Age of Sigmar and the Hedonites of Slaanesh. And honestly, I'm really stoked on that. Here's a picture of a side by side here. You can see that same kind of goat visage, the same little nose piece over the goat nose, the same ear, everything. It's very, very similar. Of course, we don't have a full body to really compare this to, but my assumption is what Creative Assembly would do would be to take a more Age of Sigmar style Slaanesh army. And honestly, I think that's a good approach, because if they want to keep this T for teen, having 19 tits on a weird demon creature, while seductive, is not going to keep that rating. And they have whole new upgraded models, so they look very sharp, very clean. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more when we talk about the Bloodletter in a bit. But I think that taking some of the Age of Sigmar things, as far as updated versions of 8th edition fantasy, is a really good call. And when we talk about the FAQ, I'm going to talk about why I have a problem with one of their answers to that question, but we'll jump into that a little bit. But that is our Keeper of Secrets for Slaanesh. Moving over to the Changer of Ways, Tzeentch here. Definitely, obviously, a greater demon of Tzeentch. Now, I was wondering, is this Kairos Fate Weaver, or is it just a random greater demon? Or again, is this Tzeentch? Kairos Fate Weaver has got 2 heads. So this might just be Sartoriel, or again, it could just be a generic representation of Tzeentch here. So you'll see this picture of Kairos Fate Weaver alongside, so you can just kind of take a look, compare, contrast. But nothing crazy to talk about with Tzeentch. So let's jump back over to Kislev in the Kossars. Moving back over to the good guys, we see the tent here with Katarine, and we see the ice guard in the back. But on the left and right sides, we see some soldiers. Now, there are a number of different soldiers that could be possible here, but one of my big ones that I talked about in that roster video are the Kossars. Now, these guys had great axes and a bow hybrid unit, so kind of like, your Lothern Sea Guard. But when I look at this picture, I see characters who have swords, but also ones that have bows. So they could also just simply be archers. They could simply also be partisans, which are their standard infantry. So there are some different options here. But I think that's a very exciting picture nonetheless, to see some variety, or at least some taste of the just rank and file of Kislev. Then we see this guy who looks just to be like the Druzhina, which is just basically the equivalent of an Empire captain. He didn't look like any specific legendary lord character that I could think of, but there's actually a lot of different style of lords. I mean, this guy could be a boyar, a march warden, and there's a whole ton of different legendary lord characters too. So there's a lot of different options for who this guy could be, but just wanted to showcase him real quick. This next one here, you can take a look in the background. You can see the unit we're talking about. You see these lightly armored guys on horses with bow and arrows slung across their back, with Katarine in the foreground. Now, this definitely tips off to me the Ungol horse archers, which is definitely your kind of fast attacks, cavalry with, well, you guessed it, bows and arrows. So mainly the big tip off for me, because in the lore, they don't have shirts. They're part of the nomadic portions of or I guess the steppe portions of Kislev society, is the little hats. Almost all the pictures have those little hats on. And I know they have a very specific name. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But that was kind of a bit of a giveaway here for me, especially because, again, they also have light armor and those bows and arrows. And bam, the biggest boys who need no introduction, Kislev Bearcav. There's nothing more to say. It's exactly what it looks like. There's no way else to splice this. Just big, disgusting, monstrous shock cav units in Bearcav, with like tusks too that they have adorned onto their headgear. How awesome is that? But also equally as awesome is the Winged Hussars, or the Lancer Cavalry of the of Kislev. Now, I don't know if this is the Lancers or if it's the Griffin Legion. And the Griffin Legion could just simply be a regiment of renown of those Lancers. They have very similar profiles in the allied contingent, so I'm not really sure if there's a huge distinction for what the models would look like in a CG trailer like this. So I'm very unsure, but they have overall the same exact aesthetic of a Winged Hussar heavy cavalry style unit. And whew, damn, is that awesome. Moving back to Chaos, we get the awesome Khorne Skull Crushers, not to be confused with the Blood Crushers, which would have blood letters on top of them. Now, this is an interesting picture because obviously this is the Skull Crushers with their juggernauts of Khorne, and it's really exciting because with this, it kind of gives us a kind of a taste here. A lot of people have said, you know, I don't want to see monogods, but I think when we look at this picture, it gives the possibility of this hinting towards a Warriors of Chaos update that would introduce either god-specific chaos units, or at least mark of a specific chaos god units in an undivided Warriors of Chaos roster. It's really exciting to see in this entire trailer. These are the only quote-unquote mortal, I mean the Juggernaut, not necessarily a mortal creature, mortal units in this trailer. The rest are demons. So it's exciting to at least see this as maybe a little taste or hint of things to come. But whew, damn, is that awesome. Next up, just the generic line blood letters here. And these are the little guys for Khorne's army. You're just your line infantry Chaos Demons coming in to cut stuff up. Not much to talk about. You can see the actual model here comparison. Looks just about the same. And I love this kind of attention to detail and that just kind of nod towards things. And again, this is the latter editions of Warhammer Fantasy's blood letters. In their previous years, they're a little bit more burly, and now they became a little bit more spindly. So you can see that this is the Age of Sigmar / 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy blood letters. Keep wanting to say Bloodthirster. We're not going to talk about him yet. We're going to jump back over to some Kislev units though. Now this unit is kind of showcased throughout the entire portion of the melee from the Kislev side. And this guy could be a number of things. He could be just a normal Kislev axeman, which typically has a great axe, a Kreml guard, which is elite halberd style heavy infantry unit, or again, partisans, which were the standard line infantry with a hand weapon and a shield. And the reason I'm not really sure is because we see them in a lot of different outfittings of weapons. In this picture, or this picture specific, he has a shield and a sword. The guy in front of him though has this big like great hammer that has the stylization for the actual like hammer portion of it looking like one of the steeples of the actual palace in Kislev. So that could tell me that that's the Kreml Guard, or maybe this is something different altogether, because there's so many different styles of infantry units for Kislev, like the Urson Cultists or the Doryaska Guard, which are these dual-wielding berserkers. So very exciting to see these things in the game in whatever interpretation they're going to be, and to find out what the hell this is exactly. Is this a Kreml Guard? Is this a partisan? And if it is just the partisan, if this is just the normal standard line infantry, what do the Kreml Guard look like? Because these guys are looking pretty badass. And I love that they have that aesthetic of that Kievan Rus style of like early proto-Russian military ornament. And I love that very, very much. So let's jump on to the last unit I want to talk about here on the Bloodthirster. Closing us out is the big boy, the Bloodthirster. And I'm stoked on this model. This is clearly the new Age of Sigmar beautiful Bloodthirster versus the crap ass one from 8th edition and from like 6th edition. Although I will say Mark of Chaos did a really good job of making that 8th edition Warhammer Bloodthirster not look like crap. And when we take a look at this one, this is that Age of Sigmar, that updated one, and it just looks so sharp. And we know this isn't Scarbrand because Scarbrand has either a great axe or 2 axes. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is just the typical axe and whip of Khorne that we've seen on all the Bloodthirsters ad infinitum. And so it's awesome to see this guy brought to full and glorious life. But that concludes all of the units that we're going to go into. There's one last little screen cap I want to talk about. Well, 2 little screen caps I want to talk about as they shut the trailer down. So after we get the actual logo itself, we get a final little teaser here and the confirmation of Grand Cathay. We see the 3 icons, one being a blood letter head, the other one being Katarine, the icon made of ice, then that jade dragon on the right, and we see Grand Cathay. And this is awesome, right? This is a huge confirmation of a race of a faction I never thought would be in this game. I never, ever in a million years thought anything of Cathay, Nippon, or Ind, or Koresh, any of those would ever make their appearance in Total War Warhammer 1, 2, or 3. And they had always said, we're going to make a game and release race packs or cover all the races and factions that are already existing in the universe as codexes or as army books. So this is massive. This will definitely be a very home-brewed type of concoction. I would imagine Games Workshop has some weighing in there, but this, for the most part, will be a Games Workshop creation, and it is very exciting to see that kind of full-on confirmation. And when we talk about the FAQ and whatnot, we'll even get more information about Grand Cathay. But so massive, very exciting to see. Whoo! Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just a little bit of hearsay. And this is the picture of the narrator at the very end, right before he smirks. And this is kind of big here, I think, because like I was saying before, he doesn't look the way he does in the Total War Warhammer 1 trailer, if that's indeed the same individual. And he doesn't look the same as the Total War Warhammer 1 Sartoriel cinematic when he bursts into Sartoriel. He's not missing an eye. He looks to be probably like 10, 15, maybe even 20 years younger. So even though we know that Boris Ursus has gone north to the wastes, or at least he's failed in his endeavors in the wastes, but he's still alive, and Katarina is not the Ice Queen, this tells me that this might possibly be slightly before or maybe just barely after the coronation of Karl Franz. And that's when it's Total War Warhammer 1 is supposed to kick off. So I'm not really sure here, because if we're looking at the narrator in Total War Warhammer 1 and 2, he's definitely older, definitely missing an eye, definitely a much further step away from this dude right here. So I'm very curious to see what this kind of equals in the actual gameplay, because again, we're going to talk about the FAQ in just a second here, but they do touch a little bit on at least the timeline of when all this kicks off. So now let's pivot here, talk about that the FAQ and the actual product page for Steam. I'm not going to be showing them off. I'm just going to show a splash screen. I'm going to talk about some of the pivotal things from it, and I'll just pretty much kind of give you my thoughts on some stuff. So let's open up with talking about this Steam product page, because it gives us a really cool bit of information. And I'm going to read some choice bits from it. So the big one here is, rally your forces and step into the realm of chaos, a dimension of mind-bending horror where the very fate of the world will be decided. Will you conquer your demons or command them? And my initial thoughts for that were, talking about the realm of chaos, cool. But then I read further into this, and we get this little bitty here. The four ruinous powers rule over this place, ever seeking to slip their bonds and engulf the world in a tide of demonic corruption. Nurgle the plague god, Slaanesh the lord of excess, Tzeentch the changer of ways, and Khorne the god of blood and slaughter. On the border between the worlds, two mighty kingdoms stand sentinel, the stern warriors of Kislev and the vast empire of Grand Cathay. But each is beset by its own trials, and now both have cause to cross the threshold and send their armies into the realm of chaos. That is awesome. And we know that the Realm of Chaos has a whole fleshed out map in the Warhammer 8th edition army book for the demons. And we know that it's kind of divided up based off of which god has predominant reign over specific portions of the map. So I don't know if this is going to be a full-on secondary map you can go into, kind of like if you're playing like Heroes of Might and Magic and how you can pop into the underworld for a little bit, then pop up somewhere else. I have no idea how they're going to do this, but I am stoked to see that we'll probably be getting a representation of some way, shape, or form of armies traversing into the realm of chaos. That is huge. That adds a whole level of dimension to Total War Warhammer 3 that 1 and 2 probably didn't even, I would not have even considered that in any game. Aside from like, oh, okay, here's a band of adventurers. Like if this was Vermintide, I could see it happening, but not send their armies into the realm of chaos. That is awesome. And then the product page closes out with another interesting little bit. And then there is one who schemes to achieve just that, an ancient figure who desires nothing less than to wield supreme power. But to succeed, he will need a champion. The coming conflict will engulf all. Will you conquer your demons or command them? And this is talking about chaos and its desire to want to plunge the world into a cataclysm. And that sounds to me like Be'lakor. Be'lakor, is the very first demon prince. And this individual is charged after failing trying to trick out the chaos gods. He's charged with bringing the next ever chosen to all his chosen artifacts and guiding him on his journey to become the full-fledged ever chosen, that champion of the chaos gods. Is that what he's talking about right there? Because that's what it sounds like. That's what I got from that. And it is sweet. I just can't wait to hear more about like what lords we'll be seeing, what more factions. And on the lords note, there's supposedly 9. So we'll get to that now. Let's jump over to the FAQ. Now, the big thing to hit up front here is the second question. Which stores will Total War Warhammer 3 be available through? And you can pick up your copy of Total War Warhammer 3 on Steam and the Epic Game Store. So no exclusivity to Steam or Epic. They're on both, simultaneous launches, no problem. So that is a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. I know that they are very concerned about Creative Assembly possibly going exclusively Epic after the pretty ridiculous success of that first day download of Total War Troy. But nice to see that it will be simultaneous across all fronts and with cross-store multiplayer at launch. So if you have it on Epic and I have it on Steam, you and I can play together. So that's really cool to see. Now, the next big question here is the early adopter bonus. We saw this in Total War Warhammer 1. It was the Warriors of Chaos. We saw this in Total War Warhammer 2. It was Norska and a following fiasco attached to it. But with 3, there will be another early adopter race pack that you will get as either a pre-order bonus or if you purchase the game within the first week. As I've said here in the beginning, if you do want to purchase the game, I don't have my Nexus link ready just yet. Please do wait for that because we get a pretty substantial commission if you purchase through MyLink or Indie Prides or Atra Havocs. Any of us who have Nexus, we get a very substantial commission off that, so it really helps us out if you're keen on waiting. If not, go ahead, do it through Steam and Epic, whatever you want, man. But it helps us out a ton. So we don't know what that race pack is. They said they will tell us in a few months, but that early adopter bonus sounds very exciting because we have Demons of Chaos, we have Kislev and Cathay. We do not have Ogre Kingdoms or Chaos Dwarfs, and I'm hoping or suspecting one or the other is that early adopter bonus. And if there's anything to go off of like we had with Warhammer 2, where Norska allowed us to play Norska in Warhammer 1 before 2 came out, then, well, eventually you could play it in 2. I hope that that's the same thing here. This allows you to play in 2, or 1 and 2, Mortal Empires that matter, and then 3 when it comes out. And it'd be awesome if it was Ogre Kingdoms, right? Ogre Kingdoms have that kind of mercenary mechanic, but at the same time, there's portions of the map that are primed to be revealed in the Darklands and Mortal Empires to lead to Chaos Dwarfs. In fact, it's more likely, I'd say, to probably be Chaos Dwarfs just because of the portions of the land that are already kind of hidden on the Mortal Empires map versus the Mountains of Morn, which are so far away from anything we see on Mortal Empires. So a lot of food for thought there. We're going to bounce between those two and a lot of speculation videos to come, so be on the lookout for those. Now, as far as content, this is the biggest problem, or not problem, but question here. Is Total War Warhammer 3 going to be set during the end times and feature stuff from Age of Sigmar? No, as with Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2, Total War Warhammer 3 is set around the reign of Karl Franz. Our primary source is Warhammer Fantasy Battles 8th edition, although we have and will continue to use older editions for inspiration where appropriate. So I have an issue with this, and I don't, the end times is the end times. If it comes up, cool. If not, not so cool because I want to get Nagash, but still, I think it will feature Age of Sigmar, right? Like we just took a look at those 2 greater demons, and those are greater demons from the Age of Sigmar range. And I might be wrong. I might have it confused in my brain, and it might actually be right at the end times that we got the Bloodthirster model. But I know that Keeper of Secrets is definitely the one that you can see from the Age of Sigmar new Hidden Knights of Slaanesh line. So if they're taking that direction to an Age of Sigmar Hidden Knights of Slaanesh, because it is more T for teen friendly for the rating system, it would make sense. And I think it's a totally fine way to go. There's just a lot of like kind of old sloppy models with the 8th edition and 6th edition, 6th, 7th, and 8th edition demons that I think that taking that approach to the new revised and revamped models is totally fine. I don't think that that's too far to left field. And if they're already doing that with the greater demons, just go ahead and sprinkle it down onto some of the other models that didn't quite get that treatment in 7th and 8th edition. There are plenty of demons that did not get their facelift before the end of Fantasy. And it would be a shame to waste badass looking models for the sake of trying to like say, okay, well, this 8th edition model looks like this. Like, nah, you can get some pretty sweet ones if you dip into some stuff from Age of Sigmar that's not actually Age of Sigmar. Like, if we were to see any of the Stormcast Eternals, I'd be in an outrage. I'd be in a tizzy right now. But I think it's totally appropriate to borrow some of the Age of Sigmar demons if it makes sense for A, the rating, and B, keeping it as a nice polished product. I don't want to have crab claws that look like crap like they did in 6th edition. That's my soapbox. I'll step off of it. Let's move forward here. What races will be available at launch? We know Cathay, Kislev, and the Demons of Chaos. So very fun there, but also 9 playable legendary lords. So the 4 ruinous powers, that's 4 right there. And then that leaves 5 legendary lords to be split across Kislev and Cathay. There's probably 2 to 4 Cathay ones that I couldn't think of off the top of my head, and there's 2 really solid ones for Kislev I can think of between Boris Ursus and Katarine. So maybe it's 3 for Kislev, 2 for Cathay, or 4 for one for the other, or 2 and 2, and there's maybe another one for the Ruinous Powers for Undivided. So there's a lot of combinations that are possible for all of these factions, and I think it's really exciting to see that we'll be getting 9 whopping legendary lords when this bad boy comes out. I would love to see, if I had just like a pipe dream for Kislev lords, Ulrika would be really awesome. The vampire that has still a huge allegiance to Kislev and is a Lamian vampire, so it would be a really kind of cool dual army where you get both vampires and Kislev warriors together in some sort of like hodgepodge. I think that would be a really awesome idea, and I've speculated before, but let's keep going. Is this new Kislev and Cathay content for Total War Warhammer 3 legit? Yes, Games Workshop has expanded and created these factions and partnered with us. You can find out all about them from the community post that they made today as well, covering Kislev and Cathay. You can jump and see that as well. Will there be a combined map for owners of all 3 games? Yes, though currently our focus is on Total War Warhammer 3, but we will release a massive combined map that will be a huge free DLC for owners of all 3 games, and we'll have more details later. So just like they did for Mortal Empires, it'll be a FLC that'll come out a couple months after the launch of the game. I think Mortal Empires came out like a month or 2 after Total War Warhammer 2. I can't remember, to be totally honest, but it looks like we'll be kind of following that same general blueprint. But for the most part here, everything else, it's going to launch with mod support as well as multiplayer support, which is good, whereas Total War Troy did not. So great to see those things. But guys, that concludes everything here. I've rambled for like a half hour, 45 minutes now on everything, and there's so much to cover. There's so much even more to cover. I got plenty more videos in mind. Make sure you check out H for Havoc, you check out Turin, you check out Lore Master of Sotech, Indie Pride's got some great stuff, Party Elite, everyone is covering this in their own way, shape, or form. So give them some love, swing on over to their channels, Janet on Occasion, Dov Plays, go say hi to them, and check out their videos. Everyone's going to have a different take on this. And I think that's the most exciting thing about the launch of a brand new game is, let's get some ideas flowing, let's get that hype train going, let's speculate, let's just go all over the place. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple months, whenever we get a release date announced, who knows. But thank you so much for watching here today. Please go ahead and let me know in the comment section below what you're excited about. And like I said, you won't find that Nexus store link live just yet, but it will be hopefully the next day or 2. Check back on the video. I'll put a pinned comment for it, and if you want to purchase through there, it helps me out a ton. I can't stress it enough. So thank you all very much for watching here today. Oh, I'm still stoked. I'm like jazz all over the place. But as always, have a good one and take care.